Okay, so this is my evaluation video. Sorry if I seem a bit distracted. I just got a tattoo on my foot, and so my foot's gone to sleep, and it really hurts. Little update on my life. So the first thing I'm going to do is start by looking at the worst things that are on my skills audit, and then evaluate how I've come out the other end and whether I have become better or worse. So the first thing I can see is stamina, which I've got as a 2 out of 10. That's due to my condition, and yeah, so this project went well. My condition got a lot worse. I was doing my scene, decided to run through for the third and final time so that I could really get the blocking down, because I really wanted to fully understand the ins and outs of the scene. I dropped to the floor, couldn't wake up for 5 minutes, shook violently, all of that. Ambulance was called, fun times. Turns out my stamina, not very good. So after this, my stamina obviously went down. I can't do a lot anymore, basically. Sorry, my notes are like in a really awkward document. So energy, again, 4 out of 10, due to my condition. No, that hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse, because I did too much, and coming in, after like the whole ordeal of ruining my life, after the whole ordeal, it just got worse. Everything got harder, and coming in was really hard. So I put down like my facial expressions as a 6, which I don't think is a very good mark. That's because I don't think my facial expressions are quite where they need to be. I don't know why, but when I practice for a role, I always use a mirror, and I just, either I don't like my face or whatever, but because I'm not acting anymore, I didn't get to work on that skill, and whilst I was acting, I don't think that I worked on it then either, because I was still trying to get the blocking and everything before all of it happened. So for the production role stuff, my confidence in fulfilling the role, I was quite confident. The only thing I wasn't confident about, which is why I rated it a 6, was because I know that I can be a bit outspoken, I don't think that's the word, a bit rude, really, and so my confidence there sort of lacked, and I wasn't feeling great about it. But I think that I definitely sort of started working on being nicer to people, whether that was, I did this circle time exercise where we all said something nice to someone that we wouldn't necessarily either talk to or wouldn't necessarily say something nice to. Ow. I got a tattoo on my hand too. Anyway, so I did that, and a few times I picked like George and Alfie, the sorts of people that really annoy me when we are doing practical work. I sort of, afterwards, I was like, look, okay, that was good. This is what you need to improve on. I don't mean to be rude, but such and such and such, you know. So I feel like I worked on that, which built up my confidence as the director. So lighting wise, I was on lighting cues. I don't know why that decision was made. As much as like I appreciate the fact that it's a new skill and I get to learn that, and obviously I was spare, so yeah, obviously if you have someone spare, use them, that's great. The anxiety that came with that role, though, not my jam, really. I didn't really like it. The lighting itself, I think, was good. There were a few points where I was like, it's too dark, you can't see. So, especially in Tuesday scene was too dark. I couldn't see. We'd worked so hard on the facial expressions and everything, but we weren't getting any of it because of the lighting. So if I could go back, I would definitely change that. With the sound, there were issues with that up until like just before the performance. Obviously we weren't doing the performance after that, but I was given the wrong sounds, first of all. Second of all, they were just like randomly put in this folder, and half the time they didn't work. And if you're sat in a booth, everyone's counting on you to not ruin their performance, the anxiety's high, and then the sound doesn't work, or you play the wrong one. It makes you want to curl up into a ball and sit under the stage. No one wants to do that because it's full of dust. So yeah, that was pretty scary, and I didn't really like the sound effects that we had. There was a lot, every time I tried to sort of say, actually, we need a different sound between the gunshot and the drone explosion, Chris was like, no we don't, no we don't, no we don't, and I'm like, yeah we do, they're two different things, man, you can't just, because we had a sniper rifle gun, which is very different sounding from a drone, but no, that point wasn't listened to, which really upset me because it just brought the quality of the performance down a bit, I think. And there were points where there wasn't a sound where there should have been a sound, like in the script it said that Yaffa says bang instead of the actual shot. And I don't know whether it was the delivery of the line or whether it was the fact that that just didn't look good. I thought that should have been the sound instead of the speaky. Set, we had no set, we had people. I think that it obviously was really, really cool having people be the set, because obviously physical theatre, so on and so forth. But the only thing I will say is people were really quick to complain. Really quick. And obviously I wasn't in that position for very long, because I can't physically stay in these positions for very long, as say the tree or whatever, and like I get holding your arms up for ages, it's going to be tiring, but there's points where you move, like you're not there forever. Chill. I feel like I'm being a little bit insensitive there, but there were points where I was like, okay, you just need to suck it up because that's what the director wants, so that's what's going to happen. Also with that, there was a lot of so there was some scenes where I think it was like especially Friday, where everyone was lined up at the back. People weren't stood in the same way, like there would be one person with their hands hanging down instead of their hands like together, and then there was people moving, eyes wandering, stuff like that, and the amount of times I said, don't wander your eyes, stare at one point and stay staring at that one point. No one really applied that feedback. There were a few people that never really moved their eyes, which was great, but there was a few people like Alfie and Jack and some other, I think Louis, it was just like wandering eyes all the time, and so we're, as an audience member, you're watching them, they're looking at something, so you want to look at something, so by doing that they're passing the focus to something that they shouldn't be passing the focus to, which I wish I had spoken to them more about. Looking back, I feel like if I had properly explained why it annoys me so much, then they would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, it's because it's bad technique, instead of she's just being picky, you know? Costume, hair and makeup. So hair and makeup wasn't really included very much. I know when I was going to play my character, I planned out my hair and makeup very extensively. I had French braids going down into an army bun, some really nice eye makeup, sharp wings, really nice dark lipstick because I wanted to look fierce. There had been some discussions from like Sean on how she was going to do her hair, but I didn't really hear anyone else talk about it. The only thing I will say on the note of hair though is George's hair was like this the whole time, and so I was like, okay, you need to put your hair up or get it cut. Every day he would come in and it's like this. He's like, oh, I'm getting it cut 2 days before the show. I was like, right, I can't see your facial expressions right now, so 2 days before a show I'm going to finally be able to see them, and if they're not right we're going to be correcting, and so I need to see it now, if you get me. So there were points where he had like a unicorn ponytail because he just would not do anything with his hair, so that made things difficult from a director's point of view. For costume, I think costume went really well. We had a couple of issues with Deborah because we had the army clothes but they were jungle camo and not desert camo, so it was wrong, but we worked around it, we got her a top and that was fine, and There was a couple of confusions with the shirts for the school kids, but we finally got past that, and then we were like, then we decided on what we were going to do. But obviously, we came up to the show and it wasn't going to happen, so it didn't really matter too much. But luckily, we did decide on what we were going to do. I think for use of costume, we did really well. I think it was Alfie who had a brilliant idea. It's where you don't actually tie your tie, you just do like you fold it in half, bring it around your neck and pull it through the loop, and then it's so easy to take off and on again, and it was perfect. It was brilliant. And everyone was doing it, and I just think that was absolute genius, stroke of genius from him. We also had like choreographed getting dressed in Thursday and stuff like that. Or was it Thursday moving on to Saturday? Thursday moving on to Saturday? Friday? Saturday? Oh, my brain. I think. Yeah, it was Saturday. Sunday. Wow. That, you can tell my brain is mush. Special effects and production values. So I like the fact that we used projection. I think that was really cool because we could have spotlights coming down, we had the chains, and we had the explosion. I will say though, the projection looked a bit, in the nicest way possible, it looked a bit amateur, because there was the screen and the projection was half on the screen and half not. And it, like, that explosion just cracked me up every time because it looked so amateur. Like, it was just bad. I feel like we could have done better if we just had a couple of flashes of light instead of an actual projection of an explosion coming across everyone's faces. I really liked the stars though. There was, so everyone stood at the back on Sunday for a bit, and there's the stars coming down, and I think Mira is talking about Kyle, and she's talking to Anika about like Kyle and all the stuff that happened. And out of sheer luck, Yayan, who plays Kyle, is stood in the correct place where there's a nebula. So there's a nebula shining on his face. So his face is lit up, which actually worked really well because everyone else was wasn't lit, and everyone else, all the bodies weren't lit, and then it was just Kyle's face, which worked really, really well there. But yeah, projections. I liked it in Wednesday. I didn't like the fact that nothing was ever centre stage. Everything was sort of off centre, and so the projections of the spotlights weren't in the correct places, which made it really awkward for the people that were standing, because we had one group closer to them. So we had the stage left group was closer to the centre stage group than the stage right group, so it just looked wrong. It looked quite weird, but the idea was good. The execution could have been done better, I think, with more time spent on teching, because we did the tech run. I think it went way too quickly, and then we came to after the tech run, and there was like notes like, why isn't that happening, can we have that there, blah 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 blah. I think we should have done more time in the tech run, even though tech runs are really awful because they're boring, but I think with more thought we would have got it up higher than amateur, because obviously we're in a national competition, we don't want to look amateur. So the performance style and technique. So I think the stylistic qualities were quite good. Technique could have been improved, I will say. There were a lot of times actually where people were getting up off the floor. My hamster's just come out. People were getting up off the floor wrong, and like, it sounds really stupid from like an outside perspective, like getting up off the floor wrong. It doesn't sound like that's a thing, but it is a thing. There is a correct way to get up off the floor. Lydia has demonstrated it many times. I even demonstrated it, and I can barely get up off the floor as it is. I ran it through with people, and there was still so much faff involved in getting up off the floor. The technique wasn't there in the execution of how they were using their bodies. So technique of using the right muscles to create stiffness in your body where it needs to be, so control. you get me? So, if you're extending your arm, you're not going to be all floppy as you go out. You're quite tense as you come up, so growing as a tree. And stuff like that. Lifts were a nightmare. There was a lot of times where the lifts looked messy. They looked uncontrolled. There were so many times where Bex got dropped on their head. I was like, oh my god. So no. If I could go back, I would spend more time personally working on those lifts, because I know Sian did it, but she'd say, oh, it looked good yesterday. We come in, it's not good that day. Which, as a company, you need to look good every day. You can't, everyone has their off days, but the off days were more often than the on days. So the lifts weren't great. Definitely shoes on the floor, too loud, stuff like that, just the little things, and facial expressions in the right place. There was a lot, because it's quite an emotional piece. As an actor, default is to go to fear or sadness, because those are the easiest ones to play, in my opinion. Some people might find that harder, but it wasn't called for in some places, so people that were really good at facials would only have a small select of facials, but they wouldn't put them in the right place, or they'd be using the wrong one because they don't have one for that situation, or there'd be people that would be in a situation where everyone's dying and they smile, and it just sort of ruins the piece. And I'd ask, hey, you in character? They'd be like, yeah, I'm in character. I'm like, no, you're not. And so to combat that, I did meditation with people and made them reflect on some really awful things, which sounds really bad, but I'm actually really proud, because after getting everyone to reflect on these really bad things and relate it to their characters, it came out looking so much better. Everyone looked so much better. So that really, really worked, to work on the technique of how your character connects to yourself, because yes, your character isn't you, but you still have to play it, so you've got to understand the true inner workings. So we did a breaking down of emotion sort of thing, and then putting your own emotion into it. Use of physicality within the performance. So I'm thinking physicality in the sense of body language when I say this. It wasn't good. It wasn't as good as it could have been. Some was really good. I know Dan and Sian and Bex were some that stood out. I'm sure there's more, but in my brain. Those were the ones that really stood out, especially in Tuesday. Oh, nice. I would say there was a lot of times though where the physicality just wasn't there. So on Thursday, these kids have trekked across thousands and thousands of miles. They haven't really eaten properly. They're going to be really, really tired, but they're just not showing that in their body language. They're sort of stood up straight, they're on their phones, they're sort of blah, 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 blah. There was a few, after I gave the feedback, there was a little bit of a slouch, but I think it could have been a bit more, because melodramaticism did come into play a little bit within the show, a fair bit within the show, even though it's naturalistic acting in a way. Anyway, I feel like that could have been there. Physicality in the sense of physical theatre, I think that was really good. I think that all of the actors definitely took on the role and was like, yeah, that's what we're doing. The trees and everything like that was brilliant. There was a few times where I was like, okay, think tree, because there was a couple of sloppy fingers or just hanging limbs or whatever. But yeah, after feedback, I think that was minty. Use of voice within the performance. So projection was a huge issue up until we cancelled the show, basically. I am deaf in one ear, so I don't know whether I'm just a bit too harsh, but I couldn't really hear what a lot of them were saying. I was sat right at the back, obviously, because I was doing tech, and so they'd be saying their stuff, and I just didn't catch it at all. And then if they're not going all out, then their facial expression isn't there, and so it doesn't catch at all. So I think to improve on that and going back, the vocal coach should have been more present and should have done more work on projection and stuff like that, and articulation, because there was a lot of really hard words, and as the vocal coach, it's your role to help other people improve on that. The reason why someone would get chosen for that role is because they're good at it themselves, so they're helping other people. So yeah, and obviously the song, I worked on that song with everyone a few times, but there was a couple of people that just wouldn't get on key. But that's okay, because it wasn't looking to be perfect, it was just looking to be something. There was a couple of times where I was like, okay, that's what we're working with. But that's alright. The use of characterization. So as I said before, I did that whole meditation thing, which worked really, really well. I feel like people could have gotten into character a little bit more by themselves, but that's okay. That's not... Wait, what? Ugh. I feel like people could have worked on that more themselves, which was a huge topic for the whole thing. Like, there was a lot of time where I'd be like, right, have you gone home and looked at that script and put meaning into those words? And they're like, I had a KFC last night. And it's like, dude, come on, you've gotta work for it. You can't just like breeze through. Which made it really frustrating, actually, because there was a few people like me and Bex and sometimes Alex that were working so hard, and Sophie worked incredibly hard, and then there was people that just wouldn't do anything, and I won't name names for that. But yeah, use the characterization. I think the characterization was good. There was a few times where I was like, okay, you need to stay in character, because there was a couple of times where like something would happen off stage and they're like, haha, that's really funny, or someone would mess up a line and so everyone laughs. I don't want to be rude, but the biggest person for not staying in character is George. If he messed up a line, there had to be a whole conversation about it. And I spoke to him about this. I said, if you did that in the industry, you would get fired, because they don't have time to waste, especially if you're on a TV show, you've got to do things week by week. They don't have time to waste to listen to your reasoning why you forgot that. And like, it's not like the reason's overly interesting either, which is really annoying. But so I sat down with George in a separate room and I said this to him, and then I said, look, dude, your character needs to be way better as well. It needs to have these certain things. So I gave him some research material. I gave him some examples of what I wanted to see. We come back and he's done it. His character was there. It was big and I could see who he was, and I was really, really happy and really proud. So that's probably one of my biggest moments. Yeah. So that's my evaluation of the whole show. I think that we were trying to pull together what we got. I think there was very little hope that we would have gone to London, and that's really sad, because I had a passion for this show. Even though it annoyed me a lot at times, I thought that it was actually a really good piece to work on. It was a challenge and it was fun, and it just sort of, I don't know, it made me feel proud to be a part of the company. I was really sad to hear, though, that some people weren't feeling that way, and then they just weren't working as hard, which is a shame. But going back, more time, more commitment, and I think we would have had a brilliant show to show. Sadly, COVID-19 has taken over, so we're not showing it, but we did good, hopefully, kind of. Not, mostly. Yeah, bye. Bye. Oh, I won't hang up. There we go. This is awkward.